we'll get anybody up to speed who needs.
Okay.
So, well, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for coming to our virtual Pivoting Your Small Business Pitch. My name is Gregor Smart. I'm the curator of the Kiersten Business Library and Innovation Center. Just want to tell you a little bit about our space. We've actually been around since 1930, one of the oldest business libraries in the country. And our service, we like to help small businesses, entrepreneurs. We have people coming to us for job-seeking advice. We do resume reviews. We help the nonprofit community with searching for grant money. So if you are any of those people, reach out to me. I'll give you my email address, and you can, pepper me with questions, and I'll respond to you. And I can make one-on-one appointments, and we can meet virtually. Sometimes people have, how do I find competitors? How do I find customers? Well, we have a suite of electronic resources that can help you do some market research, and I'm happy to, give you a little tutorial. And I just want to remind everybody that if you're a Massachusetts resident, you can get a Boston Public Library card, and that is your key to the great resources of our library. And you can sign up for that remotely on our website, bpl.org, if you don't have it. So we've got a number of great classes coming up. On Monday, we have a podcasting class. We have a job seeker discussion group on Tuesdays. On Thursdays, I have virtual drop-ins. You can just pop in and ask me questions on Thursdays at 11. On Friday is at 11. We have a grant-seeking resource called the Foundation Center. So if you are a nonprofit and are looking to figure out how do I get funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we can give you some advice on that. And then next Friday, at 11 as well, we have a professional presence series with Judith Bowman of Protocol Consultants, and she can give you some tips on professional etiquette and that kind of thing. So welcome everybody, and we're so happy today to have Dr. Allana Da Graca. She is the founder of Turning on the Lights Global Institute. She holds a doctorate in education from Capella University and received a master's degree in communications with a specialization in new media from Emerson College. So she has done a number of workshops, and they're always well attended. Everything from, we had a dream board workshop, we had a digipreneur workshop, we had a networking group for entrepreneurs. So Allana, we is always appreciative of the advice and your service to the library, and thank you for coming, and welcome everybody.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. And I'm going to switch gears here. So thank you so much. And you guys give me one moment. Here we go. So Greg, first of all, thank you, Greg. Hopefully I don't make Greg blush too much, but when I came back from, first of all, I love the library, like the library, or the Kiersten Library to be exact, is holds such a special place for me, because before I started my company, I saw Greg, and I went there. And, I was like, I felt so overwhelmed with like, where do I begin? And so there was Greg, just patient and just ready to help. And so Greg, I always tell you this every time I see you, but thank you so much for helping me to get the foundation of my company together. And truly, I do suggest use the resources, because they are here. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for the space, the virtual space, and welcome to this webinar. So I have really prepared today, and hopefully you brought your notebook, or wherever you're sitting, on your couch, on your bed, with your favorite socks on, but definitely, hopefully you have a pen handy, because I've got some juicy information for you today. So thank you so much again. And again, no question is a dumb question. If I'm chatting and you want to, put a question in the chat box, that would be great. And at the end, I will definitely make sure to go back. So what I want to do, first of all, is I want to see who's in the space and where we're at. So I'm actually going to start us off today with a poll. And what I'd like you to do is, when you see the poll pop up, I would like you to answer these 5 questions. So some of the questions are: why did you come today? What are you hoping to get out of today? Some other questions: has COVID impacted your perspective as a business owner, or maybe a leader or a professional? And then, how many forms of social media do you presently have? Have you ever created a digital pitch? And the 6th, are you looking for professional help in designing your online credibility? And then, are you someone who takes radical action? So I would love it if you could respond to these questions, because this will inform why we're all in the space today. So thank you. I'm super excited. I know you guys think she's always this bubbly every single time, but I'm just excited about the topic and excited about giving you the tips that you need to reach your new goals. And so I'm just gonna let this stay open for another 30 seconds and see what you guys come up with. And we're almost there. All right, so I'm going to close our poll. And I'm going to share our lovely results. So when we look at it, why did you come today? 67% says that I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. I'm trying to pivot my business. What are you hoping to get out of today? 83% advice for how to use social media, tips to leverage my online message. 75% strategy for creating my pitch. Perfect. Has COVID impacted your perspective? All of us, 83% say yes, 17% say no. How many forms of social media do you have at present? 42% of you say you have at least 2, 25% of you have 3, and 33% of you have 1. Have you ever created a digital pitch? 92% say no, and 1 of you has said yes, so that's great. Are you looking for help in professional help in designing your online credibility? 50% say yes. Some say no. And 7, are you someone who takes radical action? 75% say yes, and 25% say no. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And give me a second so I can switch gears and share my slides. 1 second. That looks odd. Why is that not letting me? Oh, that's not what I wanted to share. You guys give me 1 second. Got a lot of moving parts going on. And there we go. All right. So I want to welcome you to this webinar. And I first want to say I'm super happy to be here, because even though I didn't experience COVID, right, in 2014 when I started my business, it felt very radical. It felt very scary. And I can just say that, you know, right now the marketplace has completely shifted and across all industries. And we know that all of us are going to have to pivot, whether we comfortably feel like we can or not. So I'm just super excited that you're deciding to be in this webinar today. And I'm going to tell you this beforehand. You can always, send me an email, follow me on Instagram, and hear all of my handles. And what I would like to do to give some of you some extra bonus, for those of you who really comment a lot in the chat box, I am going to give one of you a special voucher to have a one-on-one coaching time for your integrity of just sharing your questions. And the more you post, the more questions you share, the more you might be that person to win that lucky opportunity with me. And then for those of you who just showed up today, you're free to schedule some time with me at the end of this. So if you don't know who I am, as Greg kind of mentioned, I love the library and I've done a lot of workshops there, but I'm also a go-to person, an expert in communication strategy, digital storytelling, digital onboarding, looking at how to really leverage your brand, whether that's from a personal or professional perspective to that of a business perspective. I recently joined what's called Small Business Strong, also to kind of as a business advisor to help many individuals look at how they can pivot their business at right now. And I've served a number of institutions and other organizations and done plenty of podcasts. So feel free to just put my name in Google and you'll find a lot of information there. So as Greg mentioned, I had a great time doing a vision board party. And again, the Boston Public Library is awesome. We've had such an amazing time connecting with people. And I would just encourage you again to just, even if it's just kind of going on the BPL website to connect and learn more, or just staying abreast of what's happening in the virtual space, feel free to do that and email Greg and follow up with him. But I also have to share that the beauty of what I get to do every single day is the fact that I am an entrepreneur who started out in education and never had any plans of being an entrepreneur. It just kind of happened that I fell into it. But the beauty of that was that I learned that I had more opportunity around me than I had recognized. But my problem was that I had a CMF plan. That means a cross my fingers plan. I would always say, well, I hope it works out. But I never, people told me I could speak well, and people told me I was a great trainer. But I had never at that time thought about systemizing my ideas into an actual business. And once that shifted, again, once I went to the library, I had just come back to Boston from living in Europe. And so it was a really interesting time because I had to really figure out, what was my new next going to be. Also, by the way, I love engagement. So while I'm chatting, and if this is really useful for you, anytime you hear me say something that rings a bell, feel free to put that in the comment box, in the chat box. That's great. So anyhow, so basically I had to really come up with a strong strategy to really become the woman you see today, the business owner that you see today. And I remember all entrepreneurs remember their first beginnings. That's why if 92% of you said, I've never done a pitch before, that's great because you're in the right space. And that's why we want you to come. So you can at least start to move your wheels, right, as you start thinking about how to stretch what it is that you're doing. So, before I got to this point of being able to see someone like Greg or even be on all of these different advisory boards, I had to really understand my why. And so as I'm chatting today, the big question you want to always ask yourself is, what is my why? Like, if this is going to be a new normal, what do I want my core value in my business or even as my brand? What do I really want it to be? And it's just going to inform you more and more. Now, I've created this PowerPoint presentation with another added layer about social media, because there's no way now that even if you create a creative deck of slides or a pitch to get people to understand what you're doing, there's no way you can do that without also establishing what we call social media credibility. So you'll see that throughout this talk, I'll be inserting information about how to establish your credibility, because that's also important as you're seeking investors, or even if you're just seeking, you're doing some kind of crowdfunding. So what exactly is social media? And many of us already use it, but any form of electronic communication, such as websites like Facebook, WhatsApp, Pinterest, you name it, through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content. And so there has been a huge business shift in the midst of this pandemic, and brands are going to need to foster creativity, authenticity, learning that their posts can't just be posts, but they have a call to action for real engagement. New market research, you need to look at strategy, look at how you can now pivot what you're doing to offer solutions, and lastly, address pain points. So these are all things that are like happening right now. And I want you to put in the comment box, have you noticed that there is a shift? Even as you're a consumer, have you noticed that you have shifted in how you actually consume information? Or even, like, I know, for example, I'm always on Instacart now, right? A lot more than I was before. So businesses are shifting, industries are shifting, education is shifting. So today we're going to learn how to capture the interest of our constituents, or people that are interested in the business that we provide. I'm going to show you how to position your brand online, and then also go over how you can appeal to audience need with social media strategy. And then I'll, while we're going through this, give you some laser feedback. So the first thing, I have an acronym that's called CLICK. And the first letter means to have a clear message. So when we think about getting clear, it's going to be really, really, I would always say, like, if you have a business plan, go back to the business plan and start really getting clear on the core values you say you have and around the things that you say you want to do to help your potential clients succeed. Or you might be a professional looking to expand your presence. So you want to be really clear. So I always say to people, well, nowadays, social media use can't be the same. Like, you can't just get on Facebook and just post random things. If we're thinking about this from a business perspective, and you have a business page, or you even have a personal page, I always suggest that from now on, think of your core values and try to make all your posts, quotes, and things like that aligned with either your business or your brand. Because the first thing people will look at is they're going to start from a business perspective is they're going to want to start to know you as the brand or the new business owner. And so you either can create a new Facebook business page or an Instagram page, or even just start with LinkedIn and ask yourself, okay, what are the core values or the messages that I really want to throw out there from now until, until you grow what you're actually doing. So in order to get clear, we're going to assume that you have some kind of business plan. And even if you don't have a full out business, but you're just doing consulting around a function, you still want to have some idea, right, of what it is that you're offering. You want to do a SWOT analysis where you are able to look at the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in your industry. You want to be able to identify opportunities. And I keep telling this to all my clients and to you guys. Can somebody put in the chat box, there are a lot of opportunities all around me. There really, really, really are. Just because the pandemic has caused a shift, right? There are literally still millions of people now, more than ever, sitting at home looking at what their new next is or how they can solve their problems, but maybe from a digital space. So there really still are tons of opportunities. Number three, you have to think about your strategy. That's where a place like Kiersten Innovation Lab would be awesome, because literally there's so much information there. Or coming to things like this, or finding other webinars that are really, really, really pointed to what you need. Number four, you want to start to highlight benchmarks for your deliverables. Now, I know when I say this, you guys might laugh, but I always tell people that come to me, I go, I wish I had a pill that was called success that I could just give you, but that actually does not exist. And therefore, you really have to come up with a strategy and a plan once you realize where the opportunities are around you. And then number five, identify your challenges. Well, what do I mean by that? So for example, if you said to yourself, pre-COVID, oh, I was never someone that really needed to do technology. I'm more of that regular, and you can put in the comment, like, what kind of person are you? So are you more of that traditional communicator that like would rather just see people in an actual space versus being on a webinar like this? Because it's important for you to understand what kind of persona you really have. Because as you build your brand or your business, you want to still be somewhat comfortable in what you're doing. So I highly recommend that you look at how you like to communicate as well. Once you identify those challenges, you can then work around them. And there are tons of ways to still work in a digital way without doing it, maybe you're not on video, maybe you don't like selfies and those kinds of things, but there's still a way for you to have authentic traction with those people you say you want to help. Like, I know Nikisha, she's in one of my programs. She wants to help young children. And there are so many parents out there that are like, I need my child to be able to grasp math. And where do I go? There's so many people looking. I mean, I know many of you, Douglas and I work together. So ESL, there's so many people, literally thousands of people looking for these kinds of solutions. The question is, how are you going to be able to appeal to those people, and even to maybe investors and people who you want to have buy-in? So you want to have a clear message. So the whole entire acronym: clear message, locating the need, ideation of that strategy, and the ability to connect with your constituents. And lastly, of course, to be able to look at the key of your return on investment. So as you're sharing all of these things and you're building your online credibility, you're building your ROI, because hopefully, if done well, people will start to see you and they'll look at your credibility, and there'll be other organizations and things like that who may decide to partner with you or to want to learn more about what it is that you offer. So always remember to have that click idea in mind, clear message, locating the need, and ideation. Now, it's interesting that someone today said that she's in the fitness industry because our simulation example is about this woman here. And I want to use her as a case study. And of course, because I don't have time to talk about all of your industries, this is just going to be one example of how this woman could use social media to build her brand and eventually maybe get buy-in, completely grow her business. So let's just say this was Amber. And Amber has been a fitness instructor since 2004. And let's say she has a master's in nutrition. And let's say she then in 2020 became a newlywed. So Amber's challenge, she did a SWOT on herself. She did a SWOT on the industry. And she said, wow, I have all of these skill sets. You know, I make 45K a year, but I really want to leverage my skills and I really want to make 100K a year. And I want to do this for myself. And let's say Amber met me, right? And she came to my office. So if I met Amber and she came to my office, I would say, well, first I need to ask you, are you ready to change? Are you ready for the change? Because COVID has really impacted all of us. So hopefully Amber would say, well, of course I'm ready to change. You know, I used to work at a gym. Now I'm not able to work at the gym any longer, but I still have these skill sets. And I know that there are thousands of people around the country that, not just Boston, that need to be able to lose weight. What do you suggest I do? So the first thing before anyone ever creates a digital pitch or any kind of presentation, we've got to look at the demographics of who Amber wants to actually serve. Because Amber doesn't want to serve everyone. She wants to serve a niche group. Now, let me just explain this. So even on social media and even on in general, when we go online, niche groups, people often don't think about it, but the more you niche, which means the more you can concentrate a group within a group, the stronger ability you really have to meet the needs of specific people. Let me explain. For example, I could say I'm just like Amber and I'm a fitness coach and I help everyone. But if I say I'm like Amber, but I really help corporate executive women really find life balance, and they fit between the ages of 38 and 52, then I really have a really unique group of individuals. And I could keep going and I could go on what we call number 2, a psychographic. What are the behaviors of these people that I say I want to serve? What magazines do they read? What could they find? You know, what could you find them doing on a given Saturday? What are the behaviors? And then once she did that, she could then look and say, well, what's the benefit of someone working with a one-on-one consultant like me versus doing a traditional program like Weight Watchers or Noom or any of these other things? So she would have to do all of this kind of research and understanding of, you know, who she is and what would be important. And again, that's where the library comes in. That's where you doing your research really comes in, because the more you get to know the behaviors of those you want to serve, the more you'll be able to appeal to them. And I had to learn that. I knew when I started my company, when it comes to women, I knew exactly the psychographic. I knew exactly what these women would be doing because they related to me, right? And so in the same way, when you're thinking about that, you really want to be able to locate the need. So let's just say that Amber, you know, let's say she used to work at the gym, but now she's finally found someone that meets her pain points, and she meets someone named Diane. And she starts to ask Diane all these questions. Well, what are your pain points, Diane? And so she learns about the glass ceiling that Diane has, because Diane is a professional, and Diane is lacking confidence. She's an emotional eater because her job is stressful, right? And she has a goal for personal development, and she wants to lose weight in 6 months. So, you know, Amber gets to know this particular person so well because this person really is her demographic. She may have found this person on a Facebook group. She may have found this person just in her contacts. So it will be important to know when you say you want to serve people, okay, once you break it down and get closer on the niche, what are their pain points and what are their goals and how serious are they about taking radical action? And this can be across industries. So the more you can do this, one of the things I ask people to do if they're working with me is, well, you know, if you have a vision board and you're thinking about your potential constituent, you know, put that person or photo or brand or whatever on the board. And then like this, highlight the pain points and the goals and the age demographic, et cetera. So you really have an idea of who you need to appeal to. And so then when we look at Amber, Amber has to realize that she has to build her brand equity. And what do I mean by that? Anytime now, as the business owner, anytime she's on social media, she's building brand equity. So it's always interesting when I ask a new client to show me, I'll say, okay, well, what is it that you do? And I might just do a quick search and an assessment, and I'll see like 5 different types of messages. But when we're thinking about really scaling in what we're doing, we've got to have consistency across the boards. So LinkedIn, Facebook, or whatever other platform you're using, there should be a consistent message and a consistent theme throughout, so people can really understand you and your brand. And then you have to see every post that you have, every video you do. Most people don't see it as assets, but I want to say that they are assets. And one of the number one things you can do to increase revenue, and I'm going to help you here. So a lot of us, many of us are professionals. Many of us even have a business background or a science background or whatever it might be. We never tend to think about the education we received or the trainings that we did as assets, but indeed they are. And just because you've been doing it for years doesn't mean that everyone else has that insight. So one of the number one things I always advise is do an asset of all of the things you've ever done. Like look at the trainings you gave, the workshops you did, the leadership times you've had. I mean, even if you think it's unrelated, and look at all you've done. It's amazing. Like when I have my clients do that and they go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that for the past 15, 20 years or so, or even 10 years that I've done this amount of work. Well, yeah, so that's like all of your own intellectual property of things that you have done, the learning, the implementation, all that stuff. You have a lot of opportunity there to then say, well, how can I take what I know and turn that into something, right? Or maybe you're in an industry, how can I take what I know and systemize it? Maybe I want to transition into and create a digital course. Maybe I want to be able to offer some kind of consultation. So you're going to have to see how much asset you already have and then ask yourself, how can I take this and break it down into little chunks and put it across some of these streams so that people can get a little sneak peek of some of the expertise that I have, all right? So that's where we see Instagram, and that's where we see, not Snapchat so much, but that's where we see, WhatsApp, and again, Blogger and all these other tools, Medium, because all of these tools are just ways for you to build community around your brand. All right, I need to keep moving. So I like to say it's time to ideate. That's where you have all this time to kind of get creative and think about all of these tools. And it can be a little bit overwhelming, I have to say, because there's so many now. But that's going to be one of the big things. It's kind of saying to yourself, oh, wait a minute, what are some of the things? How can I take what I know? And that's really where your creativity needs to tie in. So when I say ideate, people love to watch video. When people ask me, what's the number one thing you think people should start with? I always say, well, once you find your message in your medium, video is going to be your next, because in 2020, it was projected that the most consumed media form would be video. So people are looking at video on TikTok, they're looking at video on YouTube, they're looking at video across all streams. LinkedIn has also increased the algorithms for people who use video. So using video is an interesting way. And when we think about creating a digital pitch, video is fun. You can do that. You can also, if you don't want to show your face, you can also do things like create a slide deck and speak over the slide deck where, the information is there, but we're not necessarily seeing you talk. So there are creative ways to work around it. Again, you can create a virtual telesummit, conferences, workshops. You can do it. You don't have to be perfect. You just really have to know your topic of interest, why you're there, and what problems you plan on solving. And you have to think about a creative pitch as, it's kind of like, when you think about a commercial, let's say no one knows who you are. They don't know your brand. They don't know anything. And all they have is this little window of time to capture an understanding of who you are and what your company is about. Well, you want to figure out, how can I do that in 2 to 4 minutes? And sometimes people do, you can decide you're going to launch like a pre-launch, right? Where you're leading people up to a larger launch. So there are a lot of different creative ways to create a pitch, but at the base of it all, you have to decide, what are the core messages that I want to communicate in that actual video, or even in that presentation. So let's just look at this for a quick moment. Mobile and social adoption by generation. So we obviously can see that Gen Xers, baby boomers, and the silents, right? All of the percentages across streams are growing. Smartphones, tablets, you name it, across all social media. And of course, the younger you go, they have like 4 and 5 social media apps that they're connected to. So consumer engagement is really important to consider. And we're more interconnected now ever than before. So number 4, you want to be able to create. Once you have come up with the kind of tool that you want to use, you want to be able to say, well, how can I actually take all this information, systemize it, and now create? All right. So what are the actual steps of designing a pitch? The first one is to understand, what is your purpose? So come up with something that's really captivating, a catchy theme, if you're putting together a video or a slide deck. And then think about everything as though you're telling a story. I loved watching The Wizard of Oz when I was little. Do you guys remember it? We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. You remember that? And how we were all on a journey to go to see Oz. We were down this yellow brick road. And what you want to see is that whenever you are designing like a pitch, you're basically taking that viewer down a road to understand your brand or what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And so you want to be able to tell the story. You want to be able to put the numbers to it. For example, if you said you wanted to create an after-school program and you really wanted to be able to service, I'm making this up, but 20 young people in a reading program, you want to be able to then identify, well, how much would it actually cost? What are the line items, right? And so that would be part of your business plan, but you're doing it in a quicker way, right? So how can you show that really creatively? Would you use pie charts, bar graphs? You could use video, right? You can use all of that. The fourth part is, I call it, you want to create triad pathways. Everyone that coaches with me knows that I'm always mentioning, try to connect people in 3 ways, right? Because we don't just consume information from talking. We also consume information from how we feel things, from visuals, right? So you can say a lot with just one awesome visual. And you can say a lot with a visual that's really funny. So it's not always serious. So we have to think about, what are all of the unique ways I can really capture attention? And, so you could, for example, if you had your opening slide, you might have something that's really funny. But if it's something you really want people to understand, and maybe it's a real concern, maybe it's a photo. So you have to start asking yourself, once you know what you're doing, you know your purpose, what story am I telling? And you really want people to follow that story, right? And so then you're thinking about the pathways of communication. So you do have the Zoom and the YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And it can, like I said, it can feel overwhelming, but that's how people come together, right? They might see you on LinkedIn, and someone else might have been a part of your alumni group that you're a part of on Facebook, and then you happen to be on Instagram. So you're constantly involved in all of these different forms of social media. And of course, you're choosing the ones that make sense for your brand. All right, so when you have decided this information, you're gonna create a 3 to 5 minute video. You're gonna have some kind of captivation in the opening, right? And again, you can simply use your cell phone. You don't have to be really fancy. You can literally have your cell phone, and I know I don't have mine around with me right now, but what you can do is just have a tripod. And I will, for those of you who are interested in learning how to set up a studio, you can have like a small tripod, and you can set up your phone in such a way that it gives us a professional view, right? And then you kind of have this information that's needed. But you want to start thinking creatively. How can I actually create this video? And so one of the first things you can do is just record yourself once you have some of these key points together. The captivating opening. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are the statistics of what the problem is, and what happens if it's not solved? And then lastly, how are you or your company or your brand, how are you the solution? So these are some of the things you definitely want to think about. And then again, remember to bring us on a journey. And so the last part is you definitely want people to have a call to action. So even as you're building your credibility online, you constantly want to ask yourself every time, what am I leading people to? Am I leading them to become a stronger follower? Am I leading them because I eventually want to convert them into a client? But from now on, just always ask yourself, why am I posting? Okay, so let's just say back to Amber. Amber comes back again, and we establish her, her plan, how she's going to at least kickstart something, right? So she's not necessarily fully being able to live off of her reserve from this business, but she's getting ready to get things going. And she decides to form #live, lead, create, increase health ambition, create vibrant habits, and embrace self-love. And maybe she just has the first goal of making 20K, right? So why would she use a hashtag? Well, hashtags form communities around values. And I would suggest that she create her own hashtag. So this live hashtag makes sense for her brand. One, because it just makes sense. It's very quick, live. And two, it leads us to know what her whole ambition is with this new program she's begun. And it's easy to buy into that, right? So she could use this hashtag that's really unique. Allie, yes, it will be available later. Yes. So when I created my hashtag for my tribe, and many of you guys who are in here know the tribe, #UPML, I had no idea that I would meet the wonderful Susie Carter, who helps companies go from 0 to millions. And I also didn't have an idea that I would be able to help women from all over the world transition their lives as business owners. And hashtagging or creating a hashtag really helps for people to understand what your core value is. So after I left the library, I went home and I started to go live on Instagram using #UPML. And we then launched our very first conference from that, which only had, I think, 22 people. And then the next year we had about 140 participants in some of our workshops and our conference last year. And this year, again, we're just constantly growing. And so I know, and I knew that telling a story was not only important, but it definitely is even more important now with COVID. Like, we have to be telling a story. And one of the challenges now for new business owners is they think, I'll just pause right now until everything calms down. But I'm going to tell you this, like, don't just pause, because everything has already shifted and it's going to continuously shift. And there's been so much more demand for everything to go online with digitization, online course creation, web workshops, summits, you name it. And I want to know, what are you planning to do to pivot? So you can put that in the chat box. But you're going to have to be a little bolder in getting out there. And it's difficult, right? Because if you're an introvert, you might think, oh, well, I'm not like Dr. Allana. I'm not really the spoken person. And that's okay. I still need you to either create newsletters or blogs or even vlogs. And did you know that there are a lot of tools that you can use that don't even show your face, like Doodly? Doodly is a great tool to use. Doodly takes your words, or Doodly is done, it's an app, and what you do is you create what you want to say, and Doodly just creates it in a really fun, animated way. So it has, like, for example, if you're creating a message, the Doodly application will allow it to look like someone's hand is writing on a board. So you can use tools like that in exchange for your face, if that's what you feel is more comfortable for you to do. But I would say, don't just stop and say, well, I'm not, technology is not for me. Well, right now it's not for a lot of people, but we're all having to adapt. So I want you to know that there are tools that you can use right now. So when you're creating this, what are you asking yourself? You're saying, what's the return on the investment? You want to ask yourself things like, when you're creating a pitch for someone to buy in, you want to tell them what the results are going to look like. Well, if you invest with me and help to solve the problem, you're going to help to cut, you're going to help to retain your employees, or we're going to be able to have a more healthier, vibrant community if you sign in with my program. You want to show people how you're going to measure those results. And then you want to show how will you leverage, how are you going to leverage whatever that vision is into something beyond that? And how will this increase awareness or revenue? So when people invest, they want to know, what's the return on it? What's the return on investment? Whether it's a financial or maybe even an investment of time, they're both investments. And it's interesting because I always get a lot of emails from people doing a lot of different projects. But then when I start asking them the questions like, well, what is the project? What's the return? What are you hoping to have happen? And they just look at me and they go, what are you talking about? Then you kind of pause for a minute because you do want to help. But the more information you can give and concise information, the more chances you have to make success. So when I started my company, I had no idea that a fashion school in London would ask me if they could purchase a number of units there in London. And so that's what catapulted me into my business, was that I was able to systemize my ideas into a digital workshop, and a digital course rather, that a company from all the way across, in London or in Europe could access. So in the same way, if you start looking at what you're doing as broader than just Boston and more from an international perspective, you'd be surprised at what could actually happen. And so again, if we were to go back to our case study and we were to look at that, we would say, let's say she had to create a social media calendar. And if she were to do that, her goal is to have 25% of her individuals sign up with the Live program. Let's say she made her cost an 8-week program, and she had a goal of getting 12 people at $800. She has the potential of possibly making almost 10K, right? So we have to think about how this works. So she has to create a 60 to 90 days campaign on social media. This is the part where people hate. She has to select which social media platform she would use. She could even register her unique hashtag. She has to think about brand color alignment, and she has to provide excitement. And maybe she decides that she's going to create something so she has an actual lead up to event called the Live Launch. And she's going to use word of mouth to build engagement. So she's not investing any other dollars. She's investing her time in her strategy, right? So a lot of new entrepreneurs say, oh, well, Dr. D, I don't really have a lot of budget. Well, you don't really need budget, but you do need time. So if you don't have budget, then you do need time to plan these things out. So this is just an example of a social media plan sample. And if you were to look at it, if we were to work on this, I'm not going to go over all of it. But for example, if we were to plan this social media example out, she would have like a 5-week situation where she's constantly each week trying to invite some of her friends into a Zoom room. And if she did that with 10 people each week, she has up to 50 people in a room. Let's say 25% of those people come on in. Well, then eventually she would be able to have asked those people to purchase her program with maybe having at least 9 or 10 people. So when we look at that again, her whole job is to analyze engagement. So once you create a pitch, right, or if you're creating a series that leads up to something, you want to be able to analyze that engagement. So you're no longer just posting to post. You're looking at all of the tools like Facebook analytics, and we're definitely not going to go into that right now, but you're looking at all the tools to measure how successful is your program going. All right. And then when you have a win, or when Amber has a win, she wants to make sure she shows those wins. So in an example, I could talk about one of my clients that was part of my program. She came to me and she was flustered because she was a great speaker, but she didn't really have a core niche and she really wasn't making any revenue. So when we came together, I helped her to establish her core niche. We did her research and we knew her market, and we completely developed a whole new plan. And so she was able in 40 days to create her first $1,000 revenue stream, right? That's exciting. And she doesn't, and she was someone who was recently widowed. So for me, I was super excited that she could find another revenue stream to take care of herself and her family. She was able to increase her followers and her database. She had television endorsements and sponsorship opportunities. She's constantly impacting families, and she has officially launched herself out. She's has a subscription model program for parents and teenagers. So it's awesome to see that. And so again, what are some of the tools that you can use? Live events, digital coaching, group coaching, partnerships. So because of forming that hashtag I told you about, this wonderful person, Susie Carter, she has joined IWBCC. She's been a part of our conference before, and I would have never thought that would have happened from one small decision to go live on Instagram. So that's why I want to encourage you, because when you start using these platforms correctly, you may end up meeting influencers that don't even live, in your same respective region. And that's exciting, because essentially there are amazing people on social media. Of course, there are also trolls on social media, but if done well, you do meet amazing individuals on these platforms. And so in my company, for example, I love to help people plan, ideate, spark, and simulate. And I just want to say it's been awesome. So here are just some of the people I've had the pleasure of working with. Everyone from the health and fitness industry to ESL to cleaning, commercial cleaning, to professionals who are just looking to understand technology a little more and how they actually transition. So I want to encourage you today and we have more time, because we do have time for questions, but I want to encourage you, because many of you said, well, I do take radical action. Take radical action and schedule time with Greg, and also schedule time with yours truly, so that we can think about how you officially can transition. Also, again, for those of you who comment the most today, who send a message on one of my social media platforms, I would love to be able to give one person a one-time BCM, what I call a BCM assessment, to look at really how you're doing and what your social media strategy can be as you think about designing your pitch. So at this stage, I am going to pause now for questions, but let me look back at my chat box and see what's in here. Okay, good. So yes, this training will be shared, and so Greg will have the link, and I'll also have the link. Sarah says she's selling products instead of services. Okay, it's the same with products. So in the same way, we want to tell a story. If we think about, for example, Starbucks is always telling an amazing story. Just go to their Facebook page and look at how they're telling the story of their coffee, but also the story about humanity. So you can look at a lot of brands and see what they're doing right now, even commercials with regards to COVID. Richard says we do a lot on LinkedIn to reach people. That's excellent, as with collaborators. Greg says I've used Hootsuite. Yes, that saves you a lot of time using Hootsuite. Is there better engagement from one social versus the other? Amanda, that's a great question. So it does depend. And I will tell you, based upon demographics, if you're a Gen Xer or even a baby boomer, Facebook groups now are really great, because you can have long form discussions that you can't have in a lot of the other ones. However, if the brand is something where there are a lot of visuals, or it's very engaging, you would want to use a tool like Instagram. And then if you're really trying to find certain businesses, then LinkedIn is going to be your place to go. I will give you a little tip that you can also purchase LinkedIn Sales Navigator if you want to, if you're a new business. And the reason why you would do that is because Sales Navigator allows you to create categories and lists based upon the niches that you want to focus on. So it does save you time, and it also gives you the ability to directly engage or connect with some of these people. And again, when you're connecting, you don't want to be, you don't want to be weird. You want to have some kind of understanding of who they are before you just, put information out there. But their tools do exist. The tools, and I would caution, I know now that there's a lot of times we think, well, I need to have, 1 million followers before I make any revenue. That's absolutely not true. You just want to take your time. Please don't buy bots and waste a lot of money that way, because you really want to make sure that the people following you really are your really are within your demographic. And again, when I started, I remember I only had, like I said, I only had at the time something like 200 followers or 300 followers on Instagram. So it wasn't like I had thousands of people like I do right now. But the other thing is, if you decide to be what's called a micro influencer, the beauty of that is then other brands see what you're doing and they decide that sometimes they want to invest. And that's actually what happened with my company. I was, again, the hashtag. There was a gentleman who saw what I was doing and he said, Allana, I want to invest. I love the mission. I love what you're doing. And he offered his support. And it's happened so many times. And now I'm a brand influencer and ambassador for Amazon, as well as for a sports company called FNX and some others. And, I would have never known that there was so much traction on social media. I mean, I teach social media and digital storytelling, but to actually be in it is different. And I will tell you, some of you have some, I know some of you, so some of you have some amazing opportunities that you just have to tap into. What is your end, Amanda? Okay, so Richard's asking a question. Amanda says, great tip. All right, so I'm gonna now stop sharing for a few moments. And again, here's my information. You can take a screenshot of this, but I also will allow you, we do have a few moments, you can turn your video on. You can, if you have questions and you wanna chat. I will say thank you for every one of you tuning in to this wonderful webinar. We're not quite done yet, but I'm just officially saying thank you for the webinar presentation. Greg, thank you so much. Greg, did you want to say anything? Guys, we're going to stay around for those of you who want to hang around for additional conversation, but this is the official end of the webinar. And Greg, I'll let you wrap up if you have anything you want to say.
Well, Allana, thank you so much. That was quite a bit of very informative information, and I really appreciate it. The funny thing is, when I think of myself, I'm a librarian. I'm not an entrepreneur, but I think, well, how do I, I'm in my house, here I am on the holodeck, I'm in the basement. How do I reach, you're just stuck at home, and how am I reaching all, how am I finding new patrons, my new customer, and who are those people? And so that's really kind of triggered my brain a little bit, like, oh, well, who is it? What are their pain points? What are they trying to do? And, not an entrepreneur, but, I am in a way, I'm trying to, sell my business, which is the library. So thank you for that. And please, everyone, if I'm really happy to show any of the electronic resources that we subscribe to through the library, and happy to do one-on-one appointments or do a virtual if anybody has interest. So please reach out to me. It's gsmart@bpl.org. So anyone else have a comment or a question? I know it's hard. What I find of instruction, it's, people are timid and afraid to ask questions, and we just have to, I'm an introvert, and it is kind of just have to get over yourself and kind of not worry about things and not be so alarmed how you look on video and whatnot. And,
that's a good point. And I gave a chat to some scientists a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't thinking about that. And they're like, well, what do we say? what am I supposed to say? Let's start with that. So Rich said he has a couple of questions. Okay, great. But yes, so I don't want to hold anyone up. I will say, if you want to hang around, because I do have some more time, if you want to hang around to answer some I'm just cluttered with words. If you want to hang around so I can answer some more questions, please hang around. But if you are ready to exit yourself, hopefully you've enjoyed this. We will send out the link to you so that you can rewatch this. And thank you again. And by the way, next month, I am having something called CEO Pivot, and that's for kind of like a virtual coffee chat. If you want to learn how to continually pivot, just make sure you sign up to that by going to my website and subscribing to drallanadagraca.com or grabbing the information at the very top of this chat. Again, take radical action and try to schedule an appointment to meet with me, even if it's for a free consultation. That way we can go over where you really are. So thank you, everyone. And I will hang on. So if you want to jet on out, feel free to do so right now. And I will hang on for any last minute questions. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for all your support so far. Even for professionals, this isn't easy. What we're trying to do is to overcome snobbery, since we're dealing in a very technical business. We're dealing with doctors, scientists, people, that are very well financed and trying to get them to work with us. So they're interested in our track record. What we're trying to do is to simplify the message so we attract the right people. So, Gregor, if you can return our email, my partner and I would like to talk to you about some things. I just wanted to get everyone's feedback on what are some of the things that you've done, to break the ice, in an established market that you're trying to be disruptive in.
That's a great question. Are you asking that to everyone, Richard?
Yes.
Anybody want to respond what they're doing to pivot?
I will. As an educator, I already have a technical background, and my personality is there and engaging students. So what has really helped me, and there are some doable tools you can work with, and it doesn't cost you a thing for Zoom. It's free every hour, and if you have to go back in for longer than that, you just sign back in after you set up another meeting.
Okay, thank you, Nikisha. So Nikisha says, thank you. So Nikisha's saying Zoom is her go-to. Anybody else? All right, so Richard, I would just say, Richard, I feel like I definitely, from our conversations, I definitely see what you're trying to do. So for me, it's just a matter of really putting your energy into those high-level individuals in the right platform. That's going to be like the biggest thing to save you time versus going to every platform. LinkedIn sales is going to be great, and but even Instagram, it's as surprising as that sounds. I was sharing that how even scientists now are using it because they realize that there's such a community around, not so much the confidentiality piece, but there's so much community around it. So I think that that's going to be a go-to, and just kind of like strategizing how you keep that focus there. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. This officially closes it if there's no other questions or concerns. If you are consulting with me, hang on, don't go. So that would be Indiana, Nikisha, and all of those other wonderful people. Did Douglas leave? He did. Yeah, so everybody else, thank you so much. And I appreciate you. And this is done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at this.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Allana will be in touch.
Okay.
Can we set something up by email?
Yes. Do you see the link at the top of the chat box?
Hold on.
This is a full-grown bull elk, and one line was able to take it down and kill it.
Yeah, if you just click on the link to the website, you can see book appointment, and you can book an appointment.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
The rib cage and everything. This isn't a fresh kill. This cat's been in here for a couple days, and she's going to come back in here and keep.
All right. Any last questions? We are officially over. So everyone has everything. Nikisha, you're staying on. Indiana, you're staying on. Awesome. All right. Hey, ladies. You guys are so serious.
Hey.
Thank you for stopping by.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And thank you for introducing us to the librarian, because that's good to know that he helped you to get started. And
he's awesome. He's awesome. He's a good friend of mine. Did you guys enjoy it?
Yes, I enjoyed it. I did. You had a lot of valuable information. that we should be thinking about as we generate our own leads and how to find those people. That was very helpful to see the steps involved.
Good. And you guys know we're meeting